Here in the little town of Iwakuni, Japan, is Kiko Park, a staple of this area and a mainstay of gathering and having fun. Tucked away in this park is this curious yet striking statue of a swordsman carrying what seems to be like an extra long sword. A lot of people have seen this statue but don't know exactly who this is. Well, let me introduce you. This is Sasaki Kojiro. Back at the turn of the Edo era, he was a kensei, or in other words, a sword saint, a man whose skill with the sword was absolutely renowned, known sometimes as the Demon of Kyushu. So why is it that the Demon of Kyushu is located here on Honshu Island? He has a connection to this town that I'd like to share with you now. Now, Kojiro was famous for three things. Number one was his skill with a sword, particularly what's called the no-dachi, which is the extra long katana. Which is ironic because he was also said to have been a student of a school in Kyushu that taught the kodachi, which is actually an extra short sword, made primarily for using indoors when your movement is restricted. But he mastered his no-dachi, was custom made for him, long enough that he even gave it the nickname the drying pole, because it resembled a pole somebody would use to hang their laundry on to dry. Number two, his epic duel with fellow kensei and famed swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi is arguably the greatest swordsman that Japan ever produced, who during this duel not only defeated Kojiro, but ended up killing him. These two were polar opposites of each other. Kojiro was the epitome of Edo period samurai gentleman warrior, always wore the finest clothes and conducted himself with the greatest of etiquette. And Musashi wasn't. He was a vagabond, a traveler, wanderer, practically homeless, famed for his bad hygiene. And while Kojiro was a master of technical swordsmanship, Musashi had one leg up on him, and that was he was a master of psychological warfare. And three, Kojiro was known for a special technique with the sword that he invented called the tsubame gaeshi, or loosely translated means the turning swallow cut. And nobody really knows what this technique actually looked like because unfortunately it died with him. But as the story goes, he learned this technique by studying the way that the swallows would fly and dip their tails as they did so, while observing them from the iconic Kintaikyo bridge. So in a nutshell, as the story goes, the fight took place on Kojiro's home turf, a little island just on the northern end of Kyushu. Musashi showed up with a wooden sword that, as the story says, that he carved out of the oar of the boat that he used to arrive. Kojiro, of course, used his drying pole. Musashi arrived 3 hours late, on purpose, in order to mess with Kojiro's head and make him angry. The ever-proper and etiquette-oriented Kojiro was angry. He fell for it, and in a fit of rage, attacked Musashi. Musashi ended up defeating him, even though Kojiro used his famous turning swallow's cut. It was evaded, and in a few moves later, with a wooden sword, Musashi killed Kojiro. Now, how much of this story is true and how much of it is legend? Well, we'll never know. But there is one thing that we know for sure. The story about Kojiro learning the turning swallow's cut by watching the birds from the Kintaikyo is pure fiction. See, the Kintaikyo was not built until about 60 years after Kojiro had died. So is there any truth to this 600-year-old urban legend? Well, if there is, we're going to find it at the top of that hill at Iwakuni Castle. A healthy hike up a very steep mountain that'll do a number on a slightly heavier, out-of-shape 40-year-old man, is Iwakuni Castle, just up behind us. To give you an idea, however, of the strategic importance of it and why it matters to our story is this well behind us. The well did more than just water. According to lore, the reason behind this large branch root thing that's hovering over the well is that there is an escape tunnel dug up underneath this well. That way, if the castle was under siege and a battle was probably going to be lost, people could make an escape under this down through this tunnel and under the mountain beneath the assailants. This matters for a very simple reason. I'll show you the castle first. So Iwakuni Castle is way up here in the mountains. Way down there, it overlooks the town, the farms, the people, and everything else. Separating the two is this actually very large river. Now, over the years, many bridges had been built over this river before the Kintaikyo, but all of them had washed away due to the heavy rains during the rainy season, primarily due to mountain runoff, as this place is surrounded by mountains. The Kintaikyo, as you saw earlier, has a very unique stone structure with large stones and mortar, and a unique arced design, particularly underneath. I tried to get a good shot of that earlier. This is the bridge that stood the test of time. For about 500 years, it sat there, and it sits there still today. You can walk over the same bridge that Edo period samurai walked across, and it's a very unforgettable thing to do. Highly recommended. So, when it comes to Kojiro, did he watch the swallows from the Kintaikyo? Obviously not. But there's every reason to believe that he may have visited this town. It's fairly close to Kyushu Island, and there were many bridges that stood in that exact same spot before. So perhaps there is a little nugget of truth to this story. Alas, we will never know for sure. Well, urban legend or not, some things are absolutely undisputable. He was a legend. His swordsmanship skills were a legend. His story is legendary, and the iconic location where his statue is a fitting homage to who the man was. So if you're ever by the Kintaikyo, which I highly recommend that you be someday, have a visit. Give him a greeting. And if you like what you see and this has helped, as always, please let me know. If there's anything else I can do for you, let me know that as well. And stay tuned, because there's a lot more to come.